affection, heard whispers of his heart and passion, is pouring out. His love is deep, his love is wide, and it covers us. His love is fierce, his love is strong, it is furious. His love is sweet, his love is wild, and it's waking hearts alive. The Father loves and sends his Son. The Son lays down his life for all. He lavishes his love upon us. He calls us now his sons and daughters. He's reaching out. His love is deep, his love is wide, and it covers us. His love is fierce, his love is strong, it is furious. His love is sweet, his love is wild, and it's waking hearts to life. His love is deep, his love is wide, and it covers us. His love is fierce, his love is strong, it is furious. His love is sweet, his love is wild, it's waking hearts to life. You're waking my heart to life. You're waking me to life with your love, with your love, with your love. Your love is deep, your love is wide, and it covers us. Your love is fierce, your love is strong, it is furious. Your love is sweet, your love is wild, and it's waking hearts to life. Your love is deep, your love is wide, and it covers us. Your love is fierce, your love is strong, it is furious. Your love is sweet, your love is wild, and it's waking hearts to life. Yeah! Your love is deep, your love is wide, and it covers us. Your love is fierce, your love is strong, it is furious. Your love is sweet, your love is wild, and it's waking hearts to life.
May call it in this evening, but you only lost.
How we doing? Okay. Got a few people that had their coffee. I said, how we doing this morning? Would you guys stand with us? Oh, you come at the right time, when I least expect it, never behind. So why would I be surprised when you deliver every time? On mountaintops, on mountaintops, you stay the same. In valleys low, you never change. And I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. I'm confident as seasons change. faithfulness remains. Oh, 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 oh. You go. You go before me to prepare a blessing. You make a way. It's more than I could imagine, more than I could fathom or comprehend. On mountain tops, you stay the same. In valleys low, you never change. And I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. I'm confident as seasons change, your faithfulness remains. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, help me out, God. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my present, come on, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my present, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. And I believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord. I'm confident as seasons change, your faithfulness remains. And I believe that I will see the goodness of my Lord. Oh, I'm confident as seasons change, your faithfulness remains. Oh, 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 oh. God of my presence, God of my presence, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my presence, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all. Sing it again. God of my presence, God of my future, you write my story, you hold it all together. God of my presence, God of my future. that I will see the goodness of my Lord. I'm confident as seasons change, your faithfulness remains. Yes, your faithfulness remains.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest, and without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, I need you.
Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Where you are, and where you are, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Yeah. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. You're my one defense. You're my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my soul to rise when temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my song. So teach my song to rise to you. Yeah. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I fall on you. And Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Yeah. And Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Yeah. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense. So, I think this song, I looked at it and I was looking through the schedule, and it showed that it hadn't been played at this church in a really long time. And it got me thinking, like, why is it sometimes that songs like this, words like this, can be difficult for us to say out loud, to say, Lord, first and foremost, that there is something bigger than us that we should traditionally bow to, that there's a tradition of having reverence for. And that in of itself is, a concept that you have to wrestle with for yourself, right? But then the other part is the I need you. And I reflect on that and I realize that, this song, I've spent a lot of time in my life building out systems, creating circumstances where I don't need to depend on anyone or anything for anything. And I came to this conclusion that the exclusionary part of my heart is actually longing for something. It's my inner child that's saying, if you won't protect me, then I'll protect me, right? And so to sing a song like this is hard. It's not fun. It's not easy. But I believe that as a church, in a community that is safe, in a space that is wonderful and truly a blessing to all of us that are willing to engage with it, that inner child can blossom into an adult, a person, a human that is in touch with who they are, their feelings, their emotions, their distinct frustrations that they've experienced, the insecurities that they have, and that person would be able to say, you know what? Sometimes all I have is to reach out to wherever the divine might be and say, I just need you. That my inner child needs God. That my inner child needs a father, it needs a Lord, it needs someone to be with him, someone to encourage him, someone to say, you are willing and able, I can help you, right? And so this morning I want to invite you into that. The way that I had to invite myself on Monday, on Saturday last week, the Friday before that, as I'm sitting in my office picking these songs throughout the last few days of even processing it, I invite you into the same place that I've been in. This is a safe place where we can say this out loud. So if you're willing and you're able, and you want to experience something different today, you want to do something different, pull your hands out of your pockets. Lift up your voice. Don't worry about who's next to you. Don't worry about what they're going to think. Just be the child that you need to be and say, I need you. I need help. I need love. I need mercy. I need peace. I need joy in this space. So if you're willing and able, let's sing that together. Come on. Oh, and Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Come on. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need
tell the truth, the masses, that he is mine.
Yeah, God, we just thank you. We thank you for who you are. We thank you that our inner child, we thank you that the people that we are loved by you, that you wrote libraries worth of your love towards us. And I thank you for songs that exclaim how special you are, songs that exclaim how special we are, songs that tell the truth. And the truth is that there is hope, that we can exist today as if we were in heaven. We love you, and it's in your name we will always pray. And all his people said, amen. Amen.
Welcome. My name is David. I am one of the pastors here on staff at Watershed, and I see you showing up on a holiday weekend with 277 clothes, making me put out chairs. Good job. Let's see if you do it next week when the NFL starts. We'll see. Just a couple things I want to draw your attention to this morning. The first will be of particular interest if you are new to the Watershed community, and that is Preface. Preface is where we want you to start when you first show up here. I mean, obviously, if you showed up here today, we wanted you to start here today. But going forward, just to make sense of what kind of spiritual community, what kind of church we are, it is led by Pastor Matt O'Neill, one of our founding pastors, our lead pastor. And it's your opportunity not only to learn a little bit more about this community, but crucially, and perhaps most importantly, to meet folks who are also wanting to learn a little bit more about this community. Friendships, small groups, so many things are born out of Preface. And so if you have never done it, even if you've been here a little longer, there's not like some sort of like, expiration date on whether or not Preface is valuable. So even if you've been here for a bit, if you haven't done it yet, we'd encourage you to sign up. Starts September 12th. It'll be here in person. Childcare is available at no charge, so no excuses. If you've been to Preface, then this next slide is for you. We have a form that we'd like you to fill out. Many of you have already done it, so thank you, those of you who have done that. But this survey will help us sort of plan a little bit the fall, but also going into 2024, formation opportunities, classes, groups, gatherings that build upon things like Preface and really address the questions that you have and the needs that you want to see met spiritually here at Watershed. So if you, even if you haven't taken Preface yet, I would encourage you to take a picture of that QR code. It'll also be on our app and our website, and this is your opportunity to sort of request what the next song is. It won't be a song, I'm not going to sing, but request the next kind of round of just learning opportunities here at Watershed. Next thing, this one's really, really important. So we have a number of liberation partners here at Watershed. These are folks or organizations that we support directly. And then in addition to that, we have a number of what we call trusted allies. These are folks who we think are doing really, really good work in the city. And we're not always doing stuff alongside them, but even when we're not, we like to direct people towards them. And this is sort of a cool intersection between one of our liberation partners, Tommy Allgood, who many of you know, and QC Family Tree, which is just doing crucial work in the west side of Charlotte. On September 13th, there's an event being held at Caldwell Presbyterian in the morning. You can kind of see the information there. This is it's a fundraiser event, but even more than that, it's a celebration of folks who are doing important work here in our city. And so we would love for them to have a huge turnout. But even if you can't make it, they are very much open to you purchasing a ticket, which helps them raise money and fund the important work that they do. They do things around affordable housing and rent control. They sponsor artists. It's just an incredible organization. You can learn more about it by following the QR code there on the screen, and you can learn more about it by attending by attending the event. Tommy is here this morning and would be happy to answer any questions that you have after the service. They'll be in the back, so if you want to inquire a little bit more about it before signing up, that'll be an option for you. All right, last bit of information. Many of you know that we have been in the middle of a campaign. The purpose of this campaign is multifold. First and foremost, we are trying to go into the new year financially sustainable. We had some unexpected things happen in relation to some of our income streams through some renters who were renting space here, and that's not going to be an option for us anymore. So the first phase of this campaign was to shore up that deficit, and we are close. We are about 12, yeah, that's awesome. Good job. Cheer for yourselves. We're about $1,200 away from where we needed to be to just completely make up what we were going to lose with those renters leaving. And we set our goal to sort of have that made up by November. So just making it, I like round numbers, so just making it real simple, just 600 here in September, 600 in October of reoccurring giving commitments, and we'll be there. We'll be able to go into 2024 able to dream about what's next, because we'll know that we'll be stable. So we have sort of a comprehensive landing page on our website and on our app where you can kind of stay up to date on all of this, but just a reminder, a celebration, encouragement that we are so close to the finish line. Now, the next phase of this campaign is going to be shoring up our volunteer needs, because some of what is happening is as these renters leave, they were mostly in this hallway over here, and we're getting those rooms back. And so we are sort of retransitioning many of these rooms to be of service to our kids, to our students, to be multi-purpose rooms for our midweek experiences and classes. And so Blair, our family pastor, is asking for help in that in the coming weeks. And so these QR codes will allow you to sign up. Some of it is going to be just showing up and like moving things from the basement to upstairs. If some of you are handy, there's some building opportunities, some carpentry opportunities. But this is getting us set up for phase 2 of this campaign, which is dreaming, which is imagining what we have, to accomplish still in 2024, and going into the new year just ready to hit the ground running. So thank you to those of you who have shown up throughout this campaign. We are going into the fall in a significantly more stable and strong position than we have any of the last couple years. So thank you for that. Final thing, as I leave you, we're going to put our Episcopalian hats on this morning, do something that we call pass the peace. What I mean by that is just stand up, smile, and with whatever level of touching, verbalizing, extroverting you feel comfortable with, say hi to someone this morning, and you'll know when to sit back down. Thanks for being here. We're coming out of this.
Every tree must find its place in the sun. Without sunlight, neither a tree nor any green plant could grow.
How's it grow?
last day to get in the fantasy football draft. It's also the time when all the irrational hatred towards pumpkin spice comes out, which I don't understand. I just don't. I make pumpkin spice syrup from scratch, so hate if you want to. I'm going to be enjoying my pumpkin spice lattes at home pretty much for the next 2 months. Plus, you get all, kind of other, just fall kind of stuff. But hey, it's all good. We got to cope somehow with the fact that the school year's starting again. But hey, good morning. My name is Cedric Lundy, and I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Watershed. And this morning, I will be continuing our series on the myth of normal. And this morning, I want to talk about ACEs, which is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. So for some of you, that might be something you're familiar with. Others of you, that might be something where you might want to buckle up a little bit. But I promise not to, intentionally trigger people or anything like that. But this morning, I'm going to start with a familiar biblical narrative to set up a detailed explanation of ACEs and their impact. And then I'm going to speak to kind of the problematic nature of, in particular, oftentimes in church or religious circles, we don't really help people truly navigate adversity. And finally, I'm going to close with how to build communities of compassion and build resiliency to help navigate society. So when I was thinking of what would be a really good biblical narrative to kind of capture the essence of ACEs, of adverse childhood experiences, the one that came to mind, and one I imagine many of you are familiar with, is the story of Joseph. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting about the Joseph narrative in particular is that for the sake of making it into a children's story, we're given the impression that the reason why Joseph's brothers hated him is because he had a coat of many colors. Some of you were real hesitant there. Say it with confidence. Say it with your chest. Yes, a coat of many colors. For crying out loud, they made a whole musical about it. Come on. Anyway, that's the impression that's given. It has something to do, with the coat, the fact that their father showed his favoritism by giving him this really swanky jacket. And some Bible scholars and teachers will go so far as to give the context that at the time that coat was symbolic of the fact that out in the field amongst the flocks that belonged to their father, Joseph, who was the youngest of his 10 brothers at the time, 11 children total, was put in a position of being, in essence, the supervisor over his 10 older brothers, which is not for nothing, in particular in a patriarchal society where the oldest son had priority. However, to pinpoint the coat of many colors as the focal point and catalyst of Joseph's brothers' disdain for him, or even his dreams that depicted and centered him as being over them and them being in this posture of submission to them, it really misses what led to them despising Joseph from the start. And to understand why Joseph's brothers hated him, you have to start at the beginning of their story in Genesis 29, verse 13, through chapter 30, verse 24. Now, to give a little context, Jacob, their father, was on the run. After deceiving his father into giving him the blessing that was supposed to go to his older brother Esau, he runs for his life, fleeing and fearful of the revenge and retribution of Esau. And so their mother advised Jacob to go and seek her brother, his uncle Laban, and to live amongst them. So at first, when Jacob gets out there, he's in and amongst his uncle Laban's flock, and his cousin Rachel, who is a shepherdess, comes out, and he is immediately smitten with Rachel, who is described as being beautiful in both form and appearance. And she introduces Jacob to her father Laban, who welcomes him into his home. And after staying with and working for his uncle Laban, he insists that Jacob not work for nothing but name his wages. So Joseph negotiates or offers that I will work for you if you give me your daughter, my cousin Rachel, as a wife to be wed to. So Laban agrees to this, and the 7 years passes, and the marriage comes about. And I imagine, Jacob's been working hard for 7 years, right? And he's ready to marry his wife and seal the deal, and he's probably having a good time and having a good drink to celebrate. And he gets a little drunk, and of course, his uncle Laban seems to spot an opportunity and gets his daughter Leah, who is the oldest, who is described as not being anywhere near as attractive as Rachel. He goes ahead, the phrase it uses is her eyes were weak, and that was literally the phrase that they used to say she just wasn't pretty. So I'm not like objectifying, I'm just repeating what the scripture says and giving context. But anyway, that being said, he decides, hey, while he's drunk and not really have his whole wits about him, Leah, I want you to go in there and pretend to be Rachel so that he consummates with you and ends up marrying you instead of Rachel, because back then and in that culture, part of the wedding ceremony was consummating the marriage. So, kids have any questions about that, ask your parents. So, in essence, he comes out and he's like, wait a minute, I've been tricked. This is not right. I'm the one that's supposed to trick people, not be tricked. And Laban justifies it by saying, well, hey, where I'm from, in our neck of the woods, it's not customary to wed off the oldest daughter after the younger daughter. Like, you don't wed off the younger one before you wed off the oldest. So I tell you what, work for me another 7 years, and you can marry Rachel too. And what does Jacob do? He works them 7 years, and he ends up marrying Rachel. So now he is married to both Rachel and Leah. And in Genesis 29, verse 30, and this really is kind of the key to the whole story of Joseph. It says of Jacob, and he loved Rachel more than Leah and served Laban for another 7 years. Now, I could read the text with the subheading, Jacob's children, but it just don't hit like a good old-fashioned family tree. So before we do, I just want to make a quick clarification that the polygamy we often see described in the Old Testament has little to nothing in common with present-day progressive marriages of more than one spouse. The primary difference being full consent and agency of the women, of which Leah and Rachel had neither in an ancient patriarchal culture. The dysfunction in Jacob's family wasn't due to him having 2 wives. It was because his disdain and apathy towards his other wives, aside from Rachel, was on full display. So, we get the text where it starts breaking down his family tree. And it says that Leah conceives and gives birth to the first of 4 sons of Jacob. And she names the first Reuben, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction. For now my husband will love me. And then the second one she names Simeon, because the Lord has heard that I am hated. And the third she names Levi, in hopes that now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. The fourth she names Judah, this time I will praise the Lord. It takes her 4 sons to realize that no matter what she does, no matter how many sons she gives her husband, that Jacob will always remain apathetic towards her and vastly in favor of Rachel. Not that makes much difference to Rachel, as she became very envious of her sister Leah and responds by despairing to Jacob and persuading him to take her servant Bilhah as a concubine and have children with Jacob on her behalf. The first she names Dan. God has judged me and also heard my voice and has given me a son, albeit through my servant slave. The second she names Naphtali. I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. Which then leads to Leah coming back with the not so fast, my friend, two can play this game. She likewise gives her servant Zilpah as a concubine to Jacob and claims 2 more children to Jacob through her servant Zilpah. And names the next one Asher, for good fortune has come, and happy am I. Apparently, Leah's firstborn, Reuben, was really good at growing mandrakes. So good that some of the mandrakes Rachel agrees to hire out to Jacob to Leah for a night. After which Leah conceives and has a 5th son from her body, who she names Issachar. God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. And Leah conceived again, giving Jacob her 6th son and 10th in total, who she names Zebulun. Now my husband will honor me. Lastly, she also bears Jacob a daughter named Dinah. We're not told what the inspiration for her name was because, again, we're knee-deep in patriarchy. So now, hopefully, you see and understand Joseph's brothers didn't hate him because of a fancy coat. Their hatred of Joseph was in direct correlation to how it was abundantly clear that their father was apathetic towards their mothers. And by extension, the implication is that he was apathetic towards them. Because there's a whole bunch of stories in between when Joseph ends up having all his dreams and being sold off by his brothers that tell you more of the exploits of what was going on with his brothers. And one of the things that happens there that you see is that their father is, yet again, notably absent in everything that's going on. But that being said, now you understand that Jacob's favoritism towards Joseph was in direct correlation to his favoritism of his favorite of his 4 wives. It was as though the other 10 sons didn't matter because from day one, Joseph's birth made it abundantly clear to everybody in that family that he was going to be treated as the firstborn as though the other 10 didn't even exist. He would bypass them all to be first in line for their father's inheritance and their father's love. So, there you have it, their family tree. For me personally, the first time I actually read through this, it was like this light bulb went off of like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like, no wonder they couldn't stand the kid. But again, you're probably familiar with the rest of the story. Joseph starts having these dreams that center him over and above the rest of his family. His brothers conspire to kill him I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied. They conspire to kill him, but then they change their mind, instead violently assault him, throw him into a pit, and then sell him into slavery to Egyptian merchants. And they lie to their father, saying he was mauled by wild beasts. Joseph goes from managing the household of an Egyptian captain to being falsely accused of rape and imprisoned, to being vindicated and made, in essence, the governor of Egypt, answering to no one but Pharaoh himself. Joseph prepares Egypt for survival of a 7-year famine, a famine that leads to his estranged family seeking refuge in Egypt, which brings them before Joseph, although they don't recognize him at first. After some shenanigans to get them to bring their aging father to Egypt, Joseph finally reveals his true identity, who he is, and is reunited with his family, with the notable exception of his mother Rachel, who had tragically died in childbirth, giving birth to the 12th and final son, Benjamin. It's only once their father Israel dies that the other brothers fear Joseph has been waiting for their father to pass to finally seek retribution for what they did to him. To which he replies, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." Now, I want you to drop a pin in that thought, in that verse, because we're going to circle back to it later, near the end. But all this to say, I chose this narrative as a launching pad to talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, because this narrative has historically been taught and told in a way that centers Joseph, which is easy to do when you start with Joseph's dreams instead of his brother's impetus for hating him to start with, and the apathy of their father towards their mothers. An apathy and hatred that I imagine was not hidden from his sons, and I dare say was even projected onto them. I imagine that they were largely neglected by their father. And neglect is one of the 3 categories of the 10 clinically recognized adverse childhood experiences. So ACEs, what are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences are indicators of abuse, neglect, and other family challenges that may occur in the home under the age of 18. Potentially traumatic events that occur during childhood. ACEs include childhood emotional, physical, or sexual abuse and household dysfunction during childhood. The categories are verbal abuse, physical abuse, contact sexual abuse, a battered mother, household substance abuse, household mental illness, incarcerated household members, and parental separation or divorce or the loss of a parent via death. Clinicians have come up with an ACEs survey consisting of 10 questions in order to determine a person's ACE score. Your ACE score is the total number of yes answers you have to these questions. Physical abuse, a parent, step-parent, or adult living in your home pushed, grabbed, slapped, threw something at you, or hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured. Sexual abuse, an adult relative, family, friend, or stranger who is at least 5 years older than you, ever touched you or fondled your body in a sexual way, or made you touch their body in a sexual way and attempted to have sexual intercourse with you. Emotional abuse, a parent, step-parent, or adult living in your home swore at you, insulted you, put you down, or acted in a way that made you afraid you might be physically hurt. Emotional neglect, someone in your family helped you feel important or special. You felt loved. People in your family looked out for each other and felt close to each other, and your family was a source of strength and support. So emotional neglect would be the absence of those things. And likewise with physical neglect, there was someone to take care of you, protect you, and take you to the doctor if you needed it. You didn't have enough to eat, your parents were too drunk or too high to take care of you, and you had to wear the same dirty clothes. Mental illness in the household. A household member was depressed or mentally ill, or a household member attempted suicide. Household substance abuse. A household member was a problem drinker or alcoholic, or a household member used street drugs. Mother treated violently. Your mother or stepmother was pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her, kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard repeatedly, hit over at least a few minutes, or even threatened or hurt by a knife or a gun, or by your father or stepfather or mother's boyfriend. In parental separation, your parents were either separated or divorced or lost a parent to death. And incarceration of a household member went to prison. Whew. So that's pretty heavy. And I imagine even as you guys see that slide and hear the description of it, some of you are even being taken back to experiences that you have had that obviously are far from pleasant. And the question is, because again, this is a series about the myth of normal, what does ACEs have to do with that? How is the intersection of the myth of normal? Well, one has to do with how common ACEs are. 67% of the initial 17,000 people that they did the survey with had at least one ACE. 1 in 8, or 12.5%, had 4 or more. ACEs are common and cross all socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic boundaries. And the majority of those who have an adverse childhood experience have had more than one. So they are common. Oftentimes, we are made to think that these things maybe aren't as common. People who experience them are made oftentimes to feel like they're alone or that no one else is going through this. And unfortunately, it is way more common than we realize. So the next question would be, why are ACEs, why have they become such a big deal in recent years? Well, while it's true that a lot of the folks who endure these experiences are more likely to engage in risk behaviors, doctors and clinicians started to observe some of these physical and mental outcomes were occurring amongst people who did not engage in these risk behaviors. So it wasn't as simple as saying, oh, you engaged in this, then this was going to be this outcome. What they were starting to notice is that people who didn't necessarily engage in smoking or alcoholism, drug use, people who were active, that they too were having some of these physical and mental health outcomes later in life as adults. And so they were looking for what is a common denominator. And that's where ACEs came into play. The most common denominator to help explain those negative health outcomes were ACEs. Which begs that question, what impact does these adverse experiences have on the body and brain that would lead to an increased likelihood of these health outcomes? Well, think of it this way, and I'll illustrate it with a story. And I maybe told this story before, but it's kind of funny and at my expense, so why not tell it again? So I hate snakes. I absolutely hate snakes. And that's pretty much the only thing I'm really scared of. I'm also exhibit a 9 on the Enneagram, so I stay very even. I don't get too high, I don't get too low. Like, I'm just always even, and I'm pretty chill. I like to roast coffee, and I was in my garage one day roasting coffee, right? So I have one table in front of me where I'm bagging the coffee, then I go over here, I seal the bag, and then I turn around and put it on a workbench behind me. So as I'm doing this, right, pouring coffee in, sealing the bag, turning around, I see a rubber snake. Because my daughter has been obsessed with trying to scare me, right? I can just walk into a room and I have to remind my wife and my daughter that I actually live here because I can just walk in a room, they're like, oh, right? So I'm thinking, this is Isla. She's found some rubber snakes. She's put it on the workbench because she knows I'm going to be out here roasting coffee to try to scare me. But, I'm just chill like that. I don't freak out. So I keep doing what I'm doing. I'm bagging the coffee, sealing the bag, putting at it, right there in front of that rubber snake. Pour coffee in, seal the bag, put it there. And I look at him like, that is a really authentic looking rubber snake. It's the eyes. The eyes are really, really convincing. But I'm like, it's a rubber snake. The thing hadn't moved for 5 minutes because it's an inanimate object. But I'm starting to think, you know what? Let me just be sure. So I grab one of my yard gloves, I pick it up, I turn around, and I throw it at its head. And even though I haven't played baseball in a while, because, I'm OLD positive, I still got pretty good aim, and hit the rubber snake right in the face. And the thing didn't move. It was a rubber snake. No, it totally turned around, looked back at the glove, turned around, looked at me, and then all of a sudden, my body reacted. My blood pressure went up, my pulse went up, there was this tingling sensation in my body, and my fight or flight or freeze mechanism in my body went into hyperdrive. And I ran out of my garage yelling and shouting expletives that I will not repeat before you. But even though I was taught that you shouldn't use profanity, I feel like I was justified because that thing freaked me out. I hate snakes, absolutely hate them. Thank God it was a black rat snake, not a copperhead. We don't mess with the black, rat snakes because they eat copperheads too. But that being said, like my body, it took me like a good 5 minutes to calm down from that while my wife and my daughter, who had been in the house but could hear me running up the driveway screaming expletives, thought was hilarious, right? Right? Now, that's kind of funny because, It happened once, and the snake is on the workbench, and that snake proceeded to make its way out of the garage, and I haven't seen the thing since, unless, of course, it was that one that got stuck up in the rafters on our house because it tried to crawl in through the attic but then hung itself. There's pictures of it on Facebook. You can check it out. And you can also see how scared I am still of snakes. Anyway, the thing was dead as a doorknob. Anyway, I digress. My point is this. Being a child who is having adverse childhood experiences is like coming home into your house that is full of snakes. It's the constant going home to this thing that is going to be constantly tapping into your stress mechanisms within your body, constantly putting you in this state of fight, flight, or freeze. And that has a toll on your body and your brain over time, that it can result in negative health outcomes in your adulthood without having the, quote, typical stuff that we look for, whether it be cancer, whether it be just other negative health outcomes that we saw on that preceding chart. That's the correlation that clinicians and doctors started to notice, that over time, that constant being in a chronic stress situation, in essence, erodes the body over time. So, again, very, very heavy. At this point, perhaps you're thinking to yourself, you know, Cedric, I appreciate you delving into the story of Joseph and opening it up to see that not only Joseph, but all his brothers likely had at least one ace. But how are you going to land the plane as it is now, where some of us are sitting here in the room and have been completely taken out of it because you transported us back to very painful parts of our past? Well, now I want to come back to that verse that I told you to drop a pin in from Genesis, when Joseph assures his brothers that he isn't going to seek retribution. He says, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." How many of you have ever heard or had that verse or other verses like it used? Oh, you guys are a little too soon, sorry. In a lot of places, this would be the time where I would turn around and say to you, now, y'all, I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what happened in your past, but I'm here to tell you this morning that God can use that awful, traumatic adversity experiences in your life for good. That there was a reason behind God allowing you to go through it and looking the other way and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, about that. Many of you guys have heard a verse like that one or other ones to basically try to make sense of the adversity and trauma you've had to navigate in life, and in essence try to normalize what happened to you. Y'all, today we are saying no to spiritual bypassing, especially not with that verse. The book of Genesis was compiled generations after Joseph died. So who knows? I'm not saying that Joseph didn't say this, but it's really easy for people generations later to, in essence, try to summarize what's happened to Israel as a nation, tack on this thing that says, hey, ultimately, all that terrible stuff that our ancestors went through, like, it's kind of worked out, right? It's really easy on the back end of that. But that does not negate what that family really, truly experience. And furthermore, ACEs are a reflection of your experience as a child. They don't define who you are. You are not to blame for your experiences as a child. You are not alone. The survey was developed because of the widespread incidence of trauma across communities, cultures, socioeconomic boundaries, and genders. And as an adult, your aces are a reflection of your past, not your future, nor your present. It is something that happened to you. And lastly, aces alone do not account for the entirety of your childhood experience, because there are also PCEs. There are positive childhood experiences as well. And they are feeling able to talk to your family members about feelings, feeling your family stood by you during difficult times, enjoying participation in community traditions, feeling safe and protected by an adult in your home, having at least 2 non-parent adults who took a genuine interest in you, feeling a sense of belonging in high school, and feeling supported by friends. My work at Urban Promise, we work with teenagers, high school students, and we train them up to work with kids. And I was introduced to ACEs by bringing and coaching our street leaders through ACEs so that they could create environments of compassionate care and trauma-informed learning for our campers. Because a lot of the campers that we have are in the midst of having multiple adverse childhood experiences, and yet we have high schoolers who are going through it too. And one of the things that we wanted to reinforce is that it ain't all bad. That even within the environment within Urban Promise, they are actually checking some of these boxes off. That they are actually having and creating positive childhood experiences for themselves and the kids that they work with. And perhaps you have heard it said, children are resilient. That is a dangerous sentiment because it assumes that children just pop out of the womb resilient and able to navigate adversity, no problems. Resiliency shouldn't be something that is just placed or assumed upon children. Rather, resiliency is something that we can help children build. And we can help them build it by allowing them to be in spaces where mutual vulnerability is practiced, where they can actually feel safe to talk about their feelings and their experiences. Another way that we can build resiliency is meditation, specifically meditation on mantras and themes that reinforce that we are good. And that our experiences do not mean that something is wrong with us. That just as you are, God has declared, and the Christ being made flesh is a approval of your humanity and your inherent goodness. And last but not least, that idea of Father, forgive them. It occurred to me that even though it's sometimes really hard to forgive other people of what they've done, that image of Jesus saying aloud on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Perhaps that is something that I can practice to ask God to forgive the people that I'm struggling to forgive for what they've done to me. Y'all, I'm very wary of making people in the Bible into superheroes and taking what is ascribed as God doing in their life and claiming it for myself and others. However, one of my favorite phrases in the Joseph narrative that was repeated a couple of times when he faced adversity was, but the Lord was with Joseph. You guys can come up now. Yes, multiple times in Joseph's narrative, when he was facing adversity, that phrase, but the Lord was with Joseph. Y'all, for me, being reminded that the Lord is with me. I don't know if it does the same thing for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But for me, that has been a reminder through my childhood and even into my present adult life. That the adversity, the disappointment, the struggle that I often face, that I am never alone in it. Yes, it would be a lot easier if God just acted in some kind of miraculous way that we sometimes see in Scripture. But I kind of liken it to that thing that I kind of had to learn in interpersonal relationships when somebody's sharing something that they're going through. That they're not always looking for me to fix it. They are just looking for someone who will listen without judgment, without trying to psychoanalyze them, and simply join them in it. To remind them that we are not alone. So y'all, again, I understand the subject matter that I talked about this morning. It's kind of heavy, to say the least. That this morning, maybe you or people who are close to you, you're replaying in your mind or almost doing that survey of what you've been through and what others have been through. May I encourage you this morning that it's not just a talk about ACEs, but it's a talk about the PCEs as well, those positive childhood experiences. We can't change anything that has happened to us, but we can live with an intentionality into creating positive experiences for others and facilitating them for ourselves within community with others as well. And that is where those kind of experiences, that's where the idea of the divine being with me in it has become an unshakable truth for me, because I've experienced the divine through community with others who were actually able to do just that, to simply be with me in the midst of the adversity and the trials that I've gone through, without having to get some pithy Bible verse to explain it or justify it, but simply be with me so that I don't have to sit there thinking that something's wrong with me and that I'm somehow, quote, abnormal. So as you go into your day, as you go into your week, y'all, be that for one another. Amen.
You are the strength when
working all things for my good, and I believe, you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good, and I believe, you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good, and I believe, you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.
You hold me in your arms until my storm is gone.
Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.
Your love will be my song till all my fears are gone.
Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.
You hold me in your arms until my storm is gone.
Everything's gonna be alright.
Your love will be my song till all my fears are gone.
I believe you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good, and I believe, you're working all things for my good. You're working all things. You're working it all. If you're willing, if you're able, would you stand with us as we sing this just a couple more times? We're going to sing this bridge. We're going to sing the chorus. Everything's going to be all right. If you're in a child like mine who's constantly questioning, we're going to be okay. I truly believe, me personally, I believe that we have a God who loves us enough to pave the way, provides the tools and the people, the surrounding, for us to change paths, do something different. Or maybe what we need today is just to be sung to. So if you're someone who is in that place, you're not ready to sing this, just let it wash over you. For the rest of us, it's not this team that sings things over people. It's you as well. And so we want to invite every single one of you, if you're willing, if you're able, to lift up your voice today, to support someone, to provide hope for someone, to change maybe the trajectory of where their day was going. And let's sing this together. If you have belief in your heart, you believe that something good is about to shift, let's speak it into fruition today. Come on. Oh, I believe, and I believe, and I believe you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good, and I believe, and I believe you're working all things for my good. You're working all things for my good, and I believe, you're working all things thank you so much for joining us this weekend, for being with us, for being in a space that raises really difficult things. And it's on purpose sometimes that you're left with the space to process, the space to not just be presented a resolve, but for you to find your own. And so may you go with God today. May you be with each other. Lord, we thank you that resolve is found in you and that you present us with the tools necessary to find resolve with each other. If everything's going to be okay, I pray with all my heart that I would find it in this space, in the midst of safety, in the midst of people who love me, in the midst of people who will challenge me and present me with opportunity for growth. I thank you for who you are. I thank you for the love that you have always left at our grip. And it's in your name I will always pray. All as people said, amen.
Did such a good job putting on your Episcopalian hats earlier that now I'm going to ask you to put on your Baptist hat. What does that mean? It means we need these chairs stacked up and moved to either side of the room. So hopefully that's not too activating for anyone. Good to see you this morning. We'll see you next week.